with Jeff Snyder.
What's the deal with Hollywood? In the span of 24 hours, we learned that there's going to be movies based on Barbie, Marshmallow Peeps, and the Disney ride It's a Small World. Now, on the one hand, after the success of the Lego movie, I understand why these projects have been put into development. But on the other hand, are you kidding me? I mean, let's start with It's a Small World, which is going to be produced by Dan Lin, who produced the Lego movie. Now, this is an iconic ride featuring an iconic theme song that basically drives you insane by the time that you end your journey past a bunch of creepy, culturally insensitive dolls. There's nothing that Disney loves more than exploiting its own theme park properties, and I think this is something like the 11th ride to garner its own movie, or should I say development executive, since I have a hard time believing that It's a Small World is ever going to make it to the big screen. Now apparently, Disney views this as a potential franchise, which says a lot about Disney right now. Not only is the studio sending mixed messages about Star Wars, but it's also very worried about the Angelina Jolie movie Maleficent, which I hear has everybody on the lot muttering under their breath, "Thank God for Frozen." Fresh off the hit comedy Las Vegas, John Turteltaub is going to be directing It's a Small World, and that makes sense since he's spent the majority of his career working for Disney, and he's been developing a third National Treasure movie that I don't expect the studio to greenlight anytime soon. Perhaps I lack the necessary vision, but I have no idea how the It's a Small World ride lends itself to a movie, though one site did suggest that Disney turn it into like a horror movie, which is a novel idea. But besides, wasn't It's a Small World already turned into a movie called Crash? Across town in Culver City, Sony is hyping Barbie as its next global franchise. Studio buzzword alert, because it's not enough to have a franchise these days, it has to be a global franchise. It's also positioning Barbie as a female empowerment tale. What? Maybe if they cast Rebel Wilson, but I can't wait to see the 100-pound busty blonde who does end up with this role. I'll tell you, it sure would be fun to be a casting associate on that movie. Apparently, Barbie's going to be a live-action comedy because Barbie's hilarious, and she's going to be depicted as a modern-day Mary Poppins. Will she wind up with Ken, or is there someone else in the Barbie universe waiting in the wings? Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony is already developing 6 spin-offs about the villains in the Barbie universe. And yes, the dreaded U-word was mentioned in Hannah Minghella's statement. Our only hope for this movie seems to be Jenny Bix. As the rare straight guy who has seen every episode of Sex and the City, her involvement bodes well for the Barbie movie. Apparently, Barbie makes it's like a $3 billion a year business for Mattel, but sales are down, and you know why? That's because young girls have better ways to entertain themselves these days than playing with dolls that promote outdated, unrealistic standards of beauty. Sony is apparently deluding itself that adults who grew up playing with Barbies are going to see this movie, but trust me, the only adults who are going to be looking forward to this Barbie movie are the adults in the band Aqua. When will Hollywood learn that toys don't translate into movies? Well, maybe except for my Slinky script. That's going to be on the blacklist this year. Finally, we have Peeps, a movie based on marshmallow candy that is especially popular around Easter. Now listen, I expressed skepticism on Twitter when the project was first announced, calling the idea the bottom of the barrel. I may wind up eating those words. Listen, I called my father, who's been in the candy business for more than 3 decades, and when I asked him, does he think that there's an audience for this Peeps movie, he said absolutely, explaining that there's a huge cult around the candy and predicting it will be a big hit. Now, knowing my dad, that doesn't really mean that much, but perhaps Hollywood's made me cynical. Listen, I'm not the only one bummed about Peeps the movie. One veteran screenwriter lamented on social media, and I quote, "There is a movie being made about Peeps, as in the fucking Easter candy. Yet no one wants to make rom-coms with adult humans anymore, because why would they when they can make movies about shitty marshmallow candy?" End quote. That writer's not alone. 45 other people like that Facebook post, many of whom are Hollywood insiders. Listen, I suppose part of my surprise is that Adam Rifkin is the creative force behind the Peeps movie, having secured the rights himself. I loved Rifkin's Detroit Rock City and would really like to see him tackle another raucous comedy rather than the Peeps movie, but I won't begrudge the man his excitement. Maybe Peeps will prove to be a trailblazer for candy movies. I could see the M&M Gang getting its own movie. What about a buddy comedy called Mike and Ike? Peeps is about as likely to happen as that Bazooka Joe movie that Michael Eisner's been trying to get off the ground, or the Stretch Armstrong movie that's been stuck in development hell. Just because this IP exists and the Peeps are a recognizable brand doesn't mean people are going to shell out money to watch their generic animated adventures. But hey, there's always TV. Ultimately, the Peeps are junk food, so it makes sense that they're getting their own movie because that's all Hollywood is interested in, feeding audiences these days, junk food. I just wish studios would take more chances. Take, for example, Legendary, which is going to be releasing As Above, So Below this summer. I know nothing about this movie, basically, but the film still feels like it could be a real discovery and a potential breakout hit. Studios need to start investing in screenwriters with original ideas rather than looking to the past to see what candy and toys and theme park rides they can exploit to make a quick buck. What happened to art? Have studios gotten out of that business? I mean, Gravity paid off for Warner Brothers. If only Hollywood would learn its lesson and shy away from the desperate cash grab. Oh well, a boy can dream. Until next time, folks, this has been What's the Deal with Jeff Snyder. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheInSnyder, and thanks for reading TheWrap.com.
What's the deal with Jeff Snyder?